Some White House advisors are proposing that the president apply tariffs as high as 25% on $200 billion of imported Chinese goods, according to the Wall Street Journal. That would be an increase from the original proposal, which was a 10% tariff. The president weighed in on the economic relationship between the U.S. and China last night during a rally in Florida.
We've taken the toughest ever actions in response to China's abusive trade practices. And we're doing very well with China, very well. And I have a lot of respect for China. And I have tremendous respect for President Xi of China. But this has been too many years of abuse. $500 billion a year. $500 billion. We've helped rebuild China. We can't do that anymore.
Joining us right now is the author of The Coming Collapse of China, Gordon Chang. Gordon, good to see you. Thanks very much for joining us. Well, we knew this wasn't going to go away anytime soon, but your thoughts on the potential of an even escalating issue where he goes to 25% from 10% on Chinese goods?
I think the president's got to do that, as regrettable as it is. You know, the president gave relief to ZTE, the embattled Chinese telecom equipment manufacturer. That was undeserved. But that really was an olive branch to the Chinese. Well, what did they do? Well, a week ago today, they did not give approval to Qualcomm's takeover of NXP.
Right.
And remember, the regulators, the State Administration of Market Regulation in China, actually approved this deal. Xi Jinping, the Chinese ruler, says, no, I'm not going to do it, which means you really can't negotiate with the Chinese at this particular time. Xi Jinping's in trouble at home, and this means that you just got to pile on the pressure.
Yeah, speaking of him being in trouble at home, the New York Times had a story out yesterday just about this, about him facing criticism at home for the economic state of China and the amount of control. The Financial Times over the weekend had a piece talking about how the Chinese actually view the president as a master strategist, very different from how he's viewed here. Yeah. What do you take on what we're seeing being reported out of Asia about Xi Jinping having quite a bit of criticism at home over the economy?
Yeah, there are a lot of symptoms of Xi Jinping's problems at home. And I mean, he's not being reported in People's Daily as much as you'd expect. You have a lot of criticism now in the open. This was unprecedented. And so I think that essentially what we're seeing, we don't know exactly what's going on because it is an extremely opaque system. But the point is that Xi Jinping is in stress.
But the criticism is unprecedented?
Oh, yeah, the criticism is more than we've ever seen of Xi Jinping.
Wow.
And it's sort of natural because, remember, he took control of the economy. As the General Secretary of the Communist Party, he didn't have the economics portfolio. He took it over from the premier. Now things are going badly, and so, of course, he owns it.
I just want to add one thing. The Wall Street Journal editorial page today writes about this very thing. Be careful claiming victory in this trade fight over China. With the Chinese economy is slowing. Chinese stocks have lost about a fifth of their value since January.
And the yuan, don't forget about the yuan.
But this is because of China's policies. They were trying to deleverage. That started 2 years ago because of the rapid buildup in corporate debt, and they are reopening the monetary spigots in China. So again, because this is a narrative that's starting to develop here at home that the U.S. is winning, the U.S. is slowing China's economy. It's worth noting that nobody wins a trade war. You just get hurt a little bit less. And China, the reason they're in this pickle is because of their own doing. And now they're reversing it.
What I worry about is, are tariffs really the answer? Are tariffs really going to get the Chinese to change their behavior? I mean, the big problem here is the constant theft of intellectual property and the forced transfer of technology that China continues to engage in. They don't even admit that they're engaging in it, and they are. Just because they're going to be paying a 25% tariff on $200 billion of goods, does that really change a culture of theft?
Well, no, it doesn't, because this is embedded in the Chinese system. And it's also embedded in Xi Jinping, who actually believes that there should be more state control of the economy, that China should close up its markets and demand access to the American and other markets. So, no, you know, tariffs are not the only answer.
So what is? Then we will never stop it.
Well, I think that,
is there any way to stop it?
No, we're in an all-out fight.
Right.
And this means, you know, implications that no one really wants to think about. But clearly, you know, Xi Jinping is not letting this go, which means that we're going to have to probably go beyond tariffs. We're going to maybe even have to have import bans, you know, all sorts of things that now are inconceivable.
The CFIUS bill.
And CFIUS. So there's going to be
well, yeah, CFIUS is getting strong, but there are a lot of things that CFIUS can't do. even though they're making CFIUS stronger.
So, Gordon, if the Chinese government, if the tariffs bring them to the table to just have a fair trade deal with the U.S., isn't that the very important, a vital step one to having, as Maria pointed out, the theft? So if we don't get them to the table for a fair trade deal, we're never going to be able to talk to them about stopping theft. So I think what we're doing right now, what the president is doing right now, is a vital first step to solving this.
Absolutely. I mean, because everything else doesn't work. You know, people say, well, let's go to the WTO, World Trade Organization. We've won every case against China since 2004, and China's behavior has just gotten worse. And before 2004, we were winning most of the cases anyway. You know, also, you know, when Steve Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary, says, let's go talk to them, well, that just does not work.
Right.
So clearly,
there's a they don't believe in patents.
No, they don't.
There's a mentality that they just, everything is open for, just take it.
Yeah,
I like that idea. I'm going to take it.
Yeah.
It's just crazy, actually. There's an op-ed this morning in the New York Times from Stephen Moore, Art Laffer, and Steve Forbes. They're calling on President Trump to end the tariffs by taking a page from President Reagan's strategy for nuclear disarmament. The article reads this in part. Just as no one ever thought Mr. Reagan would stem nuclear proliferation, if Mr. Trump aggressively pursues this policy, he could build a legacy as the president who expanded world commerce and economic freedom by ending trade barriers rather than erecting them. This is what the president is trying to do. He walked away from the EU the other day saying, yeah, we're moving toward no tariffs, no subsidies.
Yeah, last Wednesday was a landmark, you know, because before that, everyone was saying, oh, you know, Trump is bringing down the global trading system. Well, no, he's not. What he's doing is he's actually reducing tariff barriers, because if that deal with the EU actually gets implemented, and it probably will, there's not going to be any tariffs on non-automotive
But if he believes
products.
that, then he should stop bragging about how awesome the steel industry is in this country because of the tariffs that he's put on steel and aluminum. Again, it's a handout to that union. Then that steel workers union has been pushing the Democrats for this kind of deal for years. And he brags about the steel industry. Well, the steel industry employs about 140 to 170,000 people. Steel consuming industries that are getting hurt, that are raising prices, that have seen disruption and chaos in their businesses, they employ 6.5 million people. So again, you're saving the few and rescuing the few and sacrificing the many.
And even the whole idea of no tariffs. I mean, is the EU going to give up $150 billion?
They already
might
pushed
have to,
back.
right?
They
That's
already.
what I'm saying. Are all these countries going to say, okay, no tariffs, forget it, even though that we've been making $100 billion on the U.S.
But
for years?
if it opens up trade to them, it could actually be beneficial, and they may not have a choice.
They already pushed back on agricultural products. They said that we're not talking about agricultural products, so we'll see how far this goes.
And the U.S. is not talking about autos.
Yeah.
No, or light trucks.
Right?
Yeah.
The important point is 4.1% growth in Q2.
Yeah.
You know, China is growing in reality less than half that. Everyone needs the U.S. market. And so that's the reason why you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
We are going to have a much lower tariff environment because people need to sell to America.
That's his stick. Very strong economy, $19 trillion economy, and they want this market. Gordon, good to see you.